All right. Good afternoon to all of you that are part of this Mission Possible. I know that many of you are recording your videos and submitting them, and many of you have already submitted your videos for Mission Possible. This afternoon, we are very excited to begin our conversations with our expert mentors. So we're going to be having 6 weeks of every Tuesday, bringing in an expert that could possibly help you as you begin to engineer or to design your products. So today we're very excited to have Ms. Kayleen Thibodeau. Did I say that right? Yes. She's a she's in biomedical engineering. So she is a senior this year and she's about to graduate in May. She has studied biomedical engineering with a focus on cellular and tissue. Her hobbies are painting and cooking. And again, she's graduating this May, so we're very, very excited to have her here. So Ms. Kayleen, can you tell us a little bit about your line of study, what you're doing right now?
Sure. So I became interested in biomedical engineering once I realized how much I loved math and science and being able to help people in a multitude of ways. And so within my courses that I've taken through my degree plan, I've touched things such as genetics, doing lab work and doing cell culturing, working on creating drugs or devices that help people, and then focusing on how to actually support a need that's in the community. And so a lot of that I want to do within my career. And so hopefully once graduating, I'll be able to kind of focus that around more lab specific things. So creating specific commercial drugs or being able to create something that can be used in the hospital and just making sure that everything is accessible to all.
All right, awesome. So you go to the University of Texas in Arlington?
Yes.
Yes, that is awesome. So before we even came on, you had talked to us about some of those design classes that you're taking right now. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So one in specific is medical product design and development. And essentially in that class, the purpose of it is to train us how to find a problem or create a solution to a problem that hasn't been thought of. And so this process is finding a need statement. So finding a need of something that needs to be addressed. So let's say something about, well, I guess specifically I'll say iPhones. So something about iPhones is not very user friendly and needs to be improved. So then you find what you want to do, the task that you want to give yourself, and then the result that you hope for. And so essentially it could look like making iPhone users or making iPhones more user friendly by implementing a new AI system for Siri so that way voice recognition and requests made can be easily accessible to users. Or in a medical side of things would be, I guess I can use my own. So a way to address the clogging in a capnography line used in emergency situations. So that way there's a decrease in fluid buildup from the body into the line for readings of the airflow in the body.
So do you use your the engineering design process when you're coming up with new ideas in biomedical?
Yes. So there's always the engineering aspects, there we go, in biomed. So it's a multidisciplinary field. So we learn a little bit of electrical engineering, industrial, mechanical, and things like that, because those are all the things that kind of come together so that we can do basically anything.
So you had talked earlier that you had a senior project that you also had to come up with a real world problem and bring in some kind of solution. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I'll give a little background first. So I am actually the senior design lead for my group because over the summer I participated in a clinical immersion program where 12 of us were selected to go into kind of like the field of either emergency medicine, pediatrics, which is working with kids, working with the heart, working with the brain, and being able to identify problems from the provider aspect of things. So the firefighters, the doctors, the surgeons, and being able to provide care to those patients. So specifically for mine is actually the capnography line. And so our goal is to create a device which does not prevent the airflow from being collected and read. And so part of that, the importance of it is so that when that patient is in an emergency situation and is very close to having a cardiac event, they're able to assess the injuries, assess the issue, and try to provide um, a method of breathing so that way they can get that patient to the hospital.
That is awesome that you're able to use that. Every time I think about STEM, I'm thinking more of the mechanics or the coding portion of it. I think about the engineering portion of it. And so it's really nice to see that even with the engineering design process that even all of our students are using right now, it also goes into the medical field. So that is awesome to hear that. Let's see, let's go ahead and let's go into giving advice to the students who are coming up with their ideas for Mission Possible. So as we know, we've given all the students about 20 acres of land that are located in Crowley. So using the engineering design process, they are transforming themselves into engineers. They're going to develop a space where the community will be able to enjoy nature and outdoor activities. And students are also focusing on the protection of endangered species whose habitat is in Crowley. So all the teams are bringing awareness of the species and transforming the land into its habitat. So knowing that this portion of it, since you are into biomedical, medical engineering, we wanted to start asking you questions about why do you think transforming or having this space where how is this going to help people in that they're transforming this land into an area for outdoor activities?
Absolutely. So a lot of the things that we do today, since we're kind of past that or in the process of the manufacturing and industrial stage, in addition to the digital stage or digital age, there is a lot of building and designing that goes towards marketable things like buildings, apartments, office spaces, parking lots, things like that, or freeways. And so with the continuation of developing those things, there's a decrease in the green space in a lot of places. So depending on the neighborhood or the community, whether it's high income, low income, you can either have more of those green spaces or less. And so one of the ways that it actually benefits with creating that space to enjoy the outdoors is you're increasing the number of trees, which helps with the O2 production and makes it easier to breathe. You're also creating a space for new animals or insects to actually be able to make that area flourish. And then paying attention to what species or animals or environmental status that area is in, being able to support that while also providing a space for other people makes it duly beneficial.
Awesome, it does. We had talked earlier about why is the environment good for the health, and there are some lists that we had came up with, like providing stress relief, just like you said, and also because the sun is good for the body.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So getting outside of just staying at home or being on our phones and things like that allows us to reconnect with ourselves as well as the environment. So seeing some of the things that we might see in a picture on Instagram versus actually seeing it in person and taking in the amazingness of it. And it's nice to actually do things that you might do in the house or might do inside somewhere outdoors, because you're able to kind of have the space that you need to do whatever you want to do, whether it's playing games, whether it's picnics, whether it's painting outside or camping outside and using like a fire in a pot.
Yeah.
So all those things can be incorporated in ways to relieve stress or be personal care or self-care activities, which you can do by yourself or with others. So that way you can kind of promote that open and relaxing atmosphere. And so in addition to that, the sun being good for the body, a lot of us stay inside.
No, yeah. Yeah.
Texas specifically, it's super hot. So being able to kind of pick those days where the UV index is not that high, or at least packing extra sunscreen, and being able to kind of be outside in the element. So you have a lot of conservatories and things like that, like the Fort Worth Botanical Gardens, or an arboretum, which has a whole bunch of, it's a nature reserve basically. And so there's flowers, specific species, there's different ways that they manipulate the environment that promotes growth, as well as showing new ideas and stuff from either different cultures or different areas, as well as my personal favorite, butterfly exhibit, which a butterfly conservatory, which allows for kind of like there to be a sanctuary for them to grow and flourish and improve their numbers. And so it's things like that that kind of make it easier to figure out what are some things that can be done outside, and to try to use the fresh air and the nice days when it's not raining.
I'm glad that you said that. I never even thought about the butterflies, but it's true. You know, there's also a reduced amount of butterflies because of the pollution and things that are coming up the new buildings. But even coming up with conserving butterflies, I mean, that would be a great idea. Where were you from originally?
I'm from Houston.
From Houston, Texas. Okay, got it. So we also talked about the environment is good for the health. It promotes better sleep because you are outside and you come back in and just relaxing, encourages more exercise, and boosts the brain health. Did you study anything medical wise when it comes to the environment and the body? And can you share that?
So one of the things that was taught in, I'll say, I think it's health psychology, is being in a space where you can promote yourself to expand, whether that be with physical health, mental health, or just learning more about yourself, is better done outside than inside, because it allows you to experience new things, learn about new curiosities that you might not be aware of, as well as find ways to create new adventures for yourself. And those are the type of things that help promote good mental health, that help relieve stress in the body, that help promote positivity and helps with the hormones in the brain. So serotonin, dopamine, things like that, that overall improves the quality of life. And so as you continue to do those things, whether inside or outside, doing it outside might have a slightly better chance of being more beneficial to the body.
Awesome. And then the last thing is, like you had just said, you know, foster, you know, health, creativity, and imagination, and just promotes happiness. What you were talking about, the hormones, the dopamine, decreases anxiety and depression. So overall, we know that the environment is good for our health.
Absolutely.
Yes. So now we want to get to the point where we're doing questions and answers from students and from people who are chiming in through text messages and chat. Does anybody have any questions that they have for Ms. Kayleen?
I think my kids do have a question that they would like to ask her.
Okay.
You want me to read it, or do you want me to read it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. What are some specific things that can help with anxiety and depression, like that would be activities that they could do outside that maybe they could incorporate into their space, their land that they have been given?
Sure thing. So some things can include having a playground or a place to do physical exercise outside. Another thing may be having picnic tables and areas where people can come together and have their own events and be able to spread out and have fun. As well as possibly even putting a trail there so they can walk through the whole area that's been allotted to them. So that way they can have those different things. So having a trail and you see a butterfly conservatory, or you can see different species that come together, even a small setup of something from different cultures, and being able to see those different things and learn new experiences while also being in the same place and being comfortable.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good question.
Casey, did Ms. Jacqueline Lee submit some questions for you? She's just texting
Yeah,
me.
we have a few questions that came from the Mighty Engineering Cougars of Jackie Carden.
Okay, yes, that's the team.
So the first question, and I'm a big fan of this one. How do you design something that everyone can use? And this, and I guess in regards to young and old people.
So one of the things that you have to look at is the application of something in both younger and older people. And so younger people are more inclined for digital type things or something that keeps their attention almost 80% of the time, versus older people might want something that they can just kind of like sit and enjoy. And so you want to try and piece something together. So in this case, I can go back to my other example where you have a playground on one side and then the other side you have like a butterfly conservatory, or kind of like an interactive trail to where you can look at different things and learn about different things within that area. I think one of the things as well with designing something that benefits more than one demographic is being able to answer that question of how does this affects or benefit each person. And so with sitting down and answering that question yourself, you can kind of get a better idea of, is this idea beneficial for both sides? And if not, what are some of the ways that what are some of the ways that it has an impact on the younger generation or older generation? And does it still fulfill the purpose?
Awesome. So they had a couple more questions. So the next one is, what materials should we use to make our design environmentally friendly?
So you want to use things that are organic. Things that if you have, picnic tables, having them be like wooden instead of metal, so that way there's not any rust. Or you could use something like recyclable areas and what is it called? Sustainable materials. So if you have like devices, activities in your community that even if it's used and then maybe thrown away, instead of it going to the trash, it can be in a compost. So that way it goes back to the environment. You can also do things like gardening and provide those tools for them, or make it where it's promoted for others to bring them in, because you want to benefit people while also helping with the environment. So you want to think about activities that can be done which help promote not only satisfaction of the person, but also can help improve the quality of the environment around them. Does that answer your question? I hope so.
I was going to tell you, when I went to the Grand Canyon, it was surprising to me that they recycle water. So even when you use the restroom and you pee or you urinate, they have this system where it recycles. And then it comes back. It's clean. Everything is good. But I just thought, wow, what a great way to recycle water, anything liquid. And so I'm just wondering if anybody is going to be using that as part of their, environmental space, or they're going to be recycling water as well. Or like you were saying, a place for them to be able to recycle things like that goes back to the environment and is very useful. Casey, do you have another question? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think another thing to add to that is having like a man-made like lake or body of water that also helps to filter through that stuff. And so maybe like a fountain that helps filter through the water as it goes through the system underneath the ground, which also supplies the water fountains if there's water filters that are added anywhere, as well as being a supply for, the restrooms or washing your hands.
True. That's a very good idea.
So I feel like this next question, this kind of follows up on the previous one. How do you design something that doesn't need a lot of help or maintenance? So we're looking at low maintenance design.
So one thing that you can look at is the type of weather within the area that you're creating this sustainable community for, because if it's a lot of rain and prone to flooding, you want to make sure that the things that you put in your sustainable area does not either float away or can get heavily damaged by water. But it's one of those things where you want to do research within the area that you're looking at. So what are some of the things that maybe other green spaces are doing to help with keeping and maintaining their space? But there are some things where over time, whether it's 5, 10 years, 15 years, or whatever the case may be, over time, at some point, it may need to be replaced. So like I was saying before with picnic tables, if it's wooden over time, if there's a lot of water, you might have to replace it or refurbish it. Same thing with if you use metal picnic tables, you have, rust, prone to rusting, or the difficulty of trying to fix it if it's broken. But you want to make sure to kind of analyze the weather and analyze whatever the community is in, because that's the best way you can figure out if you're going to have a lot more maintenance or less maintenance. And then from there, you can kind of pick those materials and what might be best fit for what you're trying to do.
So this is a question I have. So part of this process is the students are to create a place for people to go and enjoy, but we also want to incorporate protecting an endangered species. So it could be a plant, it could be an animal, it could be both, just depends. So what would be some things for teams to consider to make sure that you're able to, you want to support both sides, the people entertainment side and the species side, but you want to make sure that the two aren't competing against each other, I guess. You want to make them as, what's the word I'm looking for? Symbiotic, I guess, is that's probably not the right word, but you want them to flow together and support each other.
Complementary.
Right.
So with that in particular, I would recommend looking at national parks. So like Yellowstone, or the other one I cannot remember the name of, where they have those areas where whether it's larger or smaller animals or a species of plants can thrive within the same area while also not impacting people in a negative way. And so there's kind of like a designated area allotted for those species versus where it's walkable and safe for people to go towards. And so since you're working with about 20 acres, I wouldn't, and it's within kind of like a city, I wouldn't expect like major things, like lions and bears and stuff like that. So when it comes to that, I think it would help with being able to kind of segregate some of those areas and either being just for animals, just for humans, or something where it can be complementary to each other so it won't negatively impact the other. So that could be like adding a fence that's both to protect the person and the animal. It can also be putting up signs for certain areas of plants to make sure that nobody touches them, so like poison ivy. And being able to kind of have not just something that you can see and possibly learn about, but making sure that that information is somewhere. So to almost all parks or green spaces have some type of sign somewhere saying when it was created, what are some things that they want to promote, if there's certain rules that they want people to follow, and what's recommended to keep someone safe.
Let me see, in the chat, we have, oh, okay.
Yeah, we can have chat questions.
Yes, hold on a second. Okay, when it comes to, again, so this has been text. When it comes to trees, when it comes to implanting, things like that, have you seen a park where they have implanted plants that don't belong in that environment?
So I think in some areas there are green spaces where they want to introduce species that do not belong. So you could say like palm trees or something. I know in Florida, there's an invasive, what is it called? invasive iguana species.
Okay.
And so it's introducing things that are more for aesthetic or an appearance versus what is something that would be beneficial. Because if you introduce, let's say, a specific type of flower or weed or a type of tree or something thereof that is kind of like a invasive type of species towards that area, it will end up kind of like destroying what you have. So there are some like vines or trees and plants that actually kind of feed off the nutrients of other plants. And so they end up overgrowing and not being able to kind of like stop because they end up becoming weeds and just going everywhere. So you want to be able to have something that helps maintain, even if you are not exactly sure what plants are or would be invasive or turn into weeds by taking nutrients from other plants. So just kind of, sometimes you don't know. So it's a little bit easier to just kind of have some type of system in place to help with regulating and monitoring the plants and environmental green spaces, which might be affected by something else. So having someone kind of like do yard, well, I guess you call it yard maintenance, but environmental maintenance, someone that's kind of like going through to make sure that it's safe for other people, as well as keeping it as natural as possible. So without, some people cut down the limbs of trees. Is it limb? Branch of trees?
Branches, yes.
Depending on if they're too low for safety reasons or if they're not stable enough and they're high. And so it's kind of things like that that help with the maintenance of these areas that promote safety, as well as keeping control of the species.
I agree with you. I never even thought about those iguanas or even some of the different types of fish or, organisms that are introduced from other countries and they come in and they're very invasive. So I guess the advice that we would give students is to really research the area where they're going to be, doing the conservation and seeing what native plants and what native animals are there. And if they are to introduce something else, to really start researching about what they would look like, because it might look really pretty, but down the line, it might not be able to be beneficial for their land, their conservation.
She has mentioned Florida. I was thinking about the pythons.
But the what? The pythons that are overgrown in Florida. Yes. Oh, yeah.
I didn't see any of those. I only saw manatees and iguanas.
Yes. So I am from Ecuador. And we have the Amazon right there, about 20-minute drive from my grandmother's house. And, it's a big place that they have to come in and conserve. So I walk in there one day and I see this beetle that's dead and it's very colorful, very big. And I was like, well, it's dead. So I'm going to take it with me so I can take it back home. So I go to the airport and immigration stops me, because I was not allowed to take one. They were conserved in the Amazon. So there was a big question about, did I kill it? And I was like, no, it was dead. And second, they didn't even want that to be transported here to the US. Because of that, they didn't want to introduce anything. So you cannot, from other countries, you cannot bring plants, you can't bring animals, because everything needs to stay within its nature. So again, going back to really researching about what you can and cannot have in your conservation space is very important.
And also looking for abundance, so that way you can at least add to what's already there instead of trying to introduce new things that might negatively impact it.
Yes. So thank you for that, because as we're judging, I'm going to start seeing what is native here in Texas and what are we looking at. So that's going to be a big part for us as judges as well. Casey, do you have another question?
Well, I would add to that for the competition part of it. The competition is you are supposed to find something that's native to North Texas in that area. So a plant or animal or both. So if you're bringing something else in, let's say iguanas from Florida over to Texas, that's not going to quite meet the parameters of what the competition's for.
That's true. That is true. And that's something that I wasn't even thinking about until you mentioned that. That's something that we're going to be looking out for. And definitely what you were talking about, how creative our students going to be in bringing in recyclable items, ideas, water filters, irrigation, how are you going to water all the plants that are around? How are you going to feed your animals? And just so those are things that we're going to be looking for as judges as well.
Well, and I was thinking, on the recycle part, the rubber that's on the mulch or the playground, that's from tires and things like that, that's being recycled and reused. So those are some ideas that people have used in the past for recycling and reusing that.
Yeah, that's very true. I know that as I go like to different state parks that are here, they even recycle the signs. And they'll put in there the yellow trail, the blue trail, the red trail, and you're just kind of following that same trail all around. And again, it's just very beautiful to go and see and using that landscaping for that, design.
It's really
Yeah.
helpful to take a look at the green spaces that are already there to kind of like pick some of the things that you would want to include. Now it might be different between on if it's in Texas, outside Texas, Central Texas, South Texas, East Texas. But a lot of those things that are incorporated in a lot of those places usually include trails, something that's biodegradable or recyclable, open walkway areas, something that's interactive with or for kids or for adults. You can promote things like a scavenger hunt, take a picture of this when you find it and see where the next clue is. Oh, that'd actually be fun.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I know that a lot of national parks, as we start going into the big parks, these are really designed, it's just very much engineered and designed to promote all these things. And I know one of the things is that they have kid rangers where they give them the little backpack. And so kids are, interacting with the environment as they're going hiking and things like that. And then they have to turn back the backpack. So I guess those are things that I'm going to be looking to see how interactive the designs are when students are presenting, projects and things like that.
So what was your favorite part to go to?
Miss Kathleen, yeah, what was your favorite? What was your favorite national or state park and why?
I don't think I've actually gone to any parks. I've mostly gone to like conservatories and botanical gardens because they're a little bit more centrally located. But it's always been something where there's like a flow of water. It's like maintenance, which helps kind of support the different species that's there. So there's one that's like in the museum district of Houston, and it's called the Herman Conservatory, I believe, and they have different species of flowers, saying what insects are primarily either feed off of those plants or are prominent in helping with the nutrients or support of that system. And the Fort Worth Botanical Gardens is somewhat similar, but it's a lot larger. So they have the water system that helps with all areas. And so you have things like a Japanese garden, and what are some things that are more prominent there that might be brought from like outside sources, but being able to actually specifically kind of support that ecosystem in that area without having to disrupt those other areas. But all these things are very walkable and interactive, and it's things that you don't see on a daily basis because you don't see a whole bunch of flowers and various types of things just on the side of the road. And so you want to be able to kind of implement that. And then also, if you are going to kind of like charge people to go in and have fun, make sure that you dictate where those funds are going to go. So have a sign again where it talks about when it was established and what are some of the things to look out for and some of the rules, but also what contributions are made in addition to what's already done for maintenance. So the money that you spend here will go towards the maintenance of the park or the area, or it will help with finding more things that are more biodegradable and recyclable that helps to benefit both the people that come and visit and the environment as well.
I'm glad that you said that. I know that at the Botanical Gardens, my favorite part is the cactus area.
Mhm.
They have a greenhouse and they have all sorts of cactuses. But what I like about it, like you were saying, if you come to the park now, you get charged for it, and you also get charged to the Japanese garden. But it always states something like half of this is going to go towards the botanists and the scientists that are going to, and the gardeners that are, maintaining it. But the other portion of it is going towards an endangered species, or it's going to save, lizards or something native to that area. So you're right. Even that little portion of it, when it comes time to competition, I mean, those details are very, very good to keep in mind. So do we have any other questions, Mr. Casey Smith?
I don't see any.
I don't see any either. To end this, I just wanted to give you a big thank you for coming on and helping our students. We have a lot of teams that are producing their videos right now for competition. So I now have your numbers. I will definitely text you so you can come in and see some of the designs and kind of meet some of the students when we start doing competitions. So you can kind of see how your volunteering today impacted those designs for the students.
Oh, absolutely. I cannot wait to see.
Yes, you're
what
gonna come
everything looks
in.
like.
Yeah, that's gonna be awesome. So, Mr. Smith, you have anything else to say?
No, we appreciate you taking time to come and chat with us, and I know we had the kids ask some really great questions, and then I know they're going to get a lot out of this. So we appreciate your thoughts and expertise on this.
Yes, and hopefully we'll see you during competition, okay?
Absolutely.
All right, thank
all
you,
the
Ms.
information.
Caitlin. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Bye.
Having me.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye.
Cool.
Yay, we did good. Okay, so the next one is